think about this, and I just want to drop this and see what your response is. But for a narcissist, your emotions are uncomfortable for them, and you're fucking up their world. So stop doing it, because you're messing up my reality. And a narcissist has their own completely separate reality from the real world. And your emotional and your crying and everything else doesn't fit into that.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you guys talk about that for a little bit?
I think that's upheld by the church.
I was thinking the same thing.
Because again, that if they acknowledge it, then they would have to be accountable. Accountable for harms, accountable for ways they've supported things that hurt other people, accountable for ways that they did not. I've said for a long time, if your faith were anything worth having, it should stand up to scrutiny.
Exactly. Yep.
And so I lived in a world that was very much, I feel like why my nervous system was so messed up, because what my father was telling me was reality. Because that's what the reality he was willing to acknowledge was in contradiction to what my body was feeling. So when you said that you were told you were crying because you were being manipulative, no. As a narcissist, they felt manipulated by your tears because they had to then acknowledge, if they didn't think you were being manipulative, they would have to acknowledge that maybe something that I did had this effect on this person, and that is the emotional response. And so like the church to me, so like even going back to the sanctuary, pews, stage, pastor is up above. That's not a shepherd. No. Shepherd has a staff that you know, that's all. They're on the same level with the sheep.
They are. That's true. Yeah.
And so to have an environment to be conducive to like support that, you would need to be like in a circle so that everybody could see everybody. And then that person, various people could go to the middle, like things like that. Because even those physical representations, like even small, uphold this system, this idea that the person that we see as the leader is supreme. And I think that goes back to all these narcissistic tendencies. And then I also think too, like, looking back on my experience with my father, and I didn't grow up knowing he was a narcissist. I had no idea. And then, I mean, I thank goodness that's not, because I know that there is a diagnosable, but then there's also like ways of being, or I guess how I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or anything, but I would say enabling narcissistic tendencies, you know, as a survival when you're in that environment. But I remember knowing once I was at a certain age, knowing I can get up every day and choose not to be an asshole. And I knew at the minimum that my father had that option or opportunity available to him, and he chose differently every single day. And it was because of what was good for him. And he lacked that narcissistic approach to life, which is that toxic individualism as well. Puts a barrier up between you and the people around you to say, I am more important. And that mirror, while self-hating, but refusing to see your humanity in the people around you, so that you do not have to be accountable for any way that you've hurt them, all while pointing the finger at them for your folly, so to speak, not knowing you're standing in front of a mirror that entire time. That's what that is to me.
And it's all not, they have never learned how to handle uncomfortable emotions. Like they just can't sit with it because it means they are bad. When instead of like, maybe I'm doing something that is harmful. Doesn't mean I am bad. It means I'm doing something. And if I'm doing something, I can do something else. But they don't understand that. They just, and it does come from, you know, his father probably was a narcissist, or his mother or something, you know, and it is just running down, and somebody has to break the cycle somewhere. And that's you know, like, no, that's not going to go down into my children. I'm not doing that, because it creates, and these pastors kind of tend to have these narcissistic tendencies. And then the congregants tend to be codependents. They can't think for themselves. You got to tell me, how should I feel about this? You know, who should I vote for? And it creates that. I'm sure it helps perpetuate that disorder in some sort of way.